Welcome back to the WCS Season 1 Final. I'm Montecristo, and joining me is Doa. We're in the thick of it here in the quarterfinals, and
That's
we're
right.
about to see Alicia versus sOs.
Yeah, we've had our ZVZ. Now it's time for our PvP, and after that, two Terran versus Terrans. It's Mirror Day, Mirror Madness here in WCS Season 1 Finals. And the ZVZ, of course, Sulky taking that one over Roro, but now we have sOs versus Alicia, like you mentioned. This should be a very interesting PvP. sOs, just like a shoo-in to go deep in this tournament, was so good in WCS last season here in Korea. And Alicia, I mean, he's played really well, but a bit of a surprise to see him this far.
Yeah, absolutely, especially because, you know, he came out in the 5th seed from WCS America.
Yeah.
And we don't see Hero or Revival, the two finalists from that region.
Yeah,
and
that's a great point.
And instead, really, Alicia kind of sneaking in along with Alive.
Yeah, I mean, and it's always that question, you know, with that 5th seed, you know, oh, they got in, you know, do they really belong with these guys? Well, Alicia's proved without a doubt that he absolutely deserves to be here. He is one of the top players in the world right now for the Protoss race, and he's got a great chance of moving on to the semifinals.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look at our players.
Let's do that.
Indeed. And here we go.
There he is.
Axioms. Alicia.
Yep, must be a little bit chilly in the booth. He's got his hoodie on and everything like that. Overall, the win rate in Protoss versus Protoss, not the best at the moment. I mean, he did his last PvP, before now actually, in WCS was against Hero in AM, and he did lose that one. So
That's right. In fact, that's the sum total. That one series against Hero, he went 1-3. You're seeing the stats right there.
That's right.
So,
He's had some other PvPs in Heart of the Swarm, but yeah, very kind of a little bit mediocre as far as results go in the matchup.
yeah, and it's also worth stating that, you know, to get out, sOs had to 2-0 Hero in a PvP.
Yeah.
And Hero 3-1 Alicia in a PvP.
Yeah.
So by the transitive property.
That PvP between sOs and Hero, though, was a bit odd. I mean,
it
sOs did cheese him in Game 1. He won that way. And Game 2 is this weird, like, sort of Dark Shrine that was proxied, and then it wasn't, and then Hero kind of made some errors. But there's sOs. We'll see what he's got in store for his Protoss opponent this time. But I really think that the precedent he set against Hero is going to keep Alicia guessing. I think he's got a great edge in terms of making it on to the semifinals.
And his sum total in the WCS of Protoss is 2-0 against Hero. So both of these guys, all of their stats for PvP are against Hero.
And you know, you and I just interviewed sOs on the other stream just a little bit ago. We talked to him a bit, asked him about his very reactive, adaptive style of play, especially about his use of hallucination and things like that in other matchups. But in his play overall, sOs told us, he's like, well, I found that I get a lot of success when I cause a player to think B and then do C. That misdirection, it's so important in mirror matchups.
And here's our map pool for this best of 5. We'll start out on Belshir Vestige, move to Akalon Waste, then Neoplanet S, and then, if necessary, Daybreak and Newkirk Precinct.
Yeah.
Whirlwind and Star Station are two vetoes for today.
The two 4-player maps, so not terribly surprising. I mean, gaining that information early in PvP is just so vital, and of course, that's going to be something that players are going to want to be able to do. So, all the other maps, 2-player maps, and these guys are going to feel pretty comfortable on them, I've got a feeling. I just can't wait to get in the games, man. I mean, sOs has become my favorite Protoss player, no doubt about it. I mean, and that's saying a lot to come from me, man. I mean, I've never been like the biggest, as hugely interested in Protoss as the other races, but sOs, he is so fun to watch. See if Alicia can hold off the insanity.
His mind games are really inspiring. While we're loading up the map, we're getting rolling, and we will be seeing Alicia versus sOs here in the quarterfinals.
Very somber music to move into this PvP. This is serious business, guys. Wow.
It is. Well, here we go. Our players, Axioms, Alicia, the red Protoss, here on Belshir Vestige and spawning in the 4 o'clock position. And his opponent, the blue Toss, Wungjin Stars, sOs.
Yep.
Starting at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, sOs has been a lot of fun to watch, but PvP, I mean, as with any mirror matchups, I feel like a lot of times the ground is even. You know, I mean, it's obviously you have access to all the same units, you have access to the same macro mechanics, things like that. So it really does come down purely to player skill. And while PvP tends to be maybe a little bit cheesier of the mirror matchups, and it's kind of always been that way, right from the early days of only 4 gates, always, it still continues to be kind of the mirror matchup in my mind anyway, that we see the most cheese, that we see the most all-ins, the most proxies. And so we'll see what we've got today. Obviously, Gateway going down for both players, and generally the openings are pretty similar unless we see, you know, what SOS did yesterday, which is like the double in-base Gateway and things like that.
Well, I hope we see some early surprising builds like that. It's always fun to get those kind of matchups, and you know, I think that at least some of the cheese in Protoss was cut out in Heart of the Swarm. Now that you can't warp in on the high ground anymore.
Right, some of the means for cheesing, some of the methods were, but I feel like the options in tech as far as Protoss goes went way, way up. I mean, before it was largely just a fight to see who could get to, you know, more Colossi first back in Wings of Liberty, but you know, now we see a lot of different stuff. We saw phase in PvP early on in the beta where it was very Stargate-centric. You know, we're seeing still a lot of Blink play. That's not really a big difference from Heart of the Swarm. And we're also seeing, you know, kind of newer things that we didn't see quite as often. Like, for instance, we see a lot more DT builds from SOS and a lot of Protoss players in general as well. The reduction in cost for the Dark Shrine, definitely helping that one out a little bit. So I feel like PvP has more variety now than we've ever seen before. It's very cool.
Well, here we go. Second gateway down for Alicia. Waiting to see what SOS's plan here.
All right, so we do have a pylon a little bit off to the side right now for SOS. So he may be planning on putting something there, which would not surprise me at all. And we'll see what it is. Now, Alicia getting those 2 gateways, so probably going to see that 3-stalker opening with a little bit of pressure just to kind of get on the map and stay safe against some early kind of craziness. And we actually have a pretty quick mothership core as well from SOS, which is something that, you know, you see often on. You know, I mean, Protosses for a while, I mean, early on in beta just were not simply they just weren't getting a mothership core. Now they usually always get it, but the timings tend to be a bit different between builds.
Well, very interesting stuff. We do see Alicia with the mothership core as well.
Yeah.
So a bit of a delay, as you're saying, though. I'm curious what this pylon is going to be used for on the side of the base from SOS.
There's a lot of stuff.
Big question, and Alicia actually going for the Stargate, whereas the Twilight Council coming out from SOS.
Yep, that's right. And I think the Mothership Core for him is just going to be able to do a lot of scouting. Same for Alicia as well. The scouting value of the Mothership Core is quite high. So Alicia, I mean, yeah, Oracles were kind of a thing back in the day, but generally we see Phoenixes right now and a little bit more Wings of Liberty style build with this particular opening. Now that Twilight Council, though, from SOS, he's adding on, 2 more gateways. So that makes me kind of think Blink here. We'll see what he decides to do. And what will be the first unit out of the Stargate for Alicia?
We're waiting with bated breath, and it will be an Oracle.
Oh, wow. Okay, he is going for Oracles. All right.
You're right. The Blink build coming out of SOS as well.
Nice.
So Stalker heavy from SOS.
Yeah.
And these Oracles, how much damage is Alicia going to be able to do with these early?
It really depends a lot. I mean, if SOS has his Mothership Core at home and he's got the ability to put the Photon Overcharge on the Nexus and kind of be defended that way, not a whole lot, because all you need is another Stalker or 2 in your base, and you're going to be in pretty good shape against that. But Alicia already being pretty aggressive out on the map, and so it's not just going to be the Oracle. It's going to be the Oracle and a couple Stalkers as well. So that does make it a little bit more dangerous. If he can snipe off the Mothership Core, that's going to help him out quite a bit in terms of hurting SOS. We'll see what happens. Here come Alicia. There is a sentry out for SOS, so he's going to be able to block that ramp a little bit. Man, there's a glare on my screen right now. It's a little bit hard to see. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, Blink coming along as well, so a bit of poking, and one Stalker gets caught behind the force field.
Yep, does catch that, but here's the Oracle, and he's going to want to leave that sentry at the front.
Takes out one probe, gets a second. He's lost the shield on the Oracle, though. He's going to have to back off.
Yeah, Blink not quite done yet, so SOS can't pursue him like that, but he did manage to kind of reduce a lot of the damage, and Alicia already turning around and going home. He knows with that Mothership Core, too, that SOS is going to be pretty safe.
And a Dark Shrine from SOS as well, right?
Yeah.
As Blink about to finish.
Man, SOS has just been loving these Dark Shrines lately, and I mean, seeing that Oracle is going to make him, you know, pause a little bit, because he's like, all right, well, you don't have a Robo, but an Oracle is still a unit that you can use to detect. And you know what, Alicia, I think as soon as he sees this, he might send that Oracle straight home, because he's going to need that detection.
All right, so switching it up to Void Rays while SOS expands. Alicia going for a little bit of a different tactic. This Oracle only able to kill a couple of probes right now.
Yeah.
So not getting the full use out of it that Alicia might have wanted here.
Yeah, I like the decision by SOS as well to throw down the Nexus too, because he knows Alicia's just not going to have that big sort of one-base army that's kind of scary sometimes, and Alicia's still scouting. And yeah, immediately the Oracle starts to head back home. And the Stalkers are in the base right now for SOS.
That's right. Photon Overcharge goes down, though, and the Blink will send SOS out of the base.
Waltz right in there.
We go a little bit of harassment, however, from Alicia. These Zealots getting some free hits on this Nexus, but a quick warp in of Stalkers will stall that out. So I gotta, and the Oracle manages to get in, but the Photon Overcharge chases it away. So this Oracle's still alive. I have to ask, when it comes time for these Dark Templar to come out, how critical is it going to be that the Oracle stayed alive and its ability to detect those units?
Right now, the Oracle's not going to do a lot of good being on the other side of the map, but the good news is for Alicia is that he is getting a Robo at home, and so he's looking at the timing of that Dark Shrine and saying, hey, you know what, I can get an Oracle, I can get an Observer out, I'm going to be fine. Manages to pick off a Stalker there, and he's going to expand himself. We're actually going to see a little bit longer of a PvP potentially on this map, and you know what, SOS not really opting for the DTs quite yet at all. In fact, he may have canceled that. I didn't see if it finished or not, but
we'll get another look next time.
There's actually, is that a pylon? Yeah, SOS actually has a pylon going up right behind Alicia's natural.
Very cute play.
Yeah, okay, so the Dark Shrine did finish. Okay.
And there goes, grabs the probe. Now will he be able to harass this with a few Zealots if he warps in? He gets lifted by the Phoenix, but he takes out the Phoenix as well, so.
Yeah. Still a little bit stronger army overall for Alicia, but here comes the DTs coming into the main. Where's the detection at? One Observer out for SOS, but none for Alicia. He needs those Oracles. He made, what? He made an Immortal. Okay. Well, I guess these DTs are just going to be able to do a little bit of damage then.
And that's right, the DTs zoning out Alicia's army from the natural. They're now going to switch their focus over to this Nexus.
Yeah.
But he is going to get chased out, blinking out just for safety.
Yeah. And I mean, SOS playing it really, really cautious. He's like, all right, you must have detection somewhere, but Alicia actually didn't have any detection at the base. So SOS may have been able to do a little bit more there, but it is a very tentative situation. You don't want to lose really any units right now if you're expanding. You don't want to die to that counterattack.
Well, as you can see, SOS has a significant income advantage, able to get that natural up and rolling a bit faster. Alicia finally finding that pylon.
Yeah, as soon as the Nexus finishes, he had vision of that. That's right. Robotics Bay on the way, so he's going to be able to add in some Colossi. And the Void Ray Colossus kind of composition has been pretty common lately in PvP. There's a blink. Can he get the Oracle? One more hit. Oh, two more hits. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
You got it.
Finally taken out, so one less thorn in SOS's side.
Now the big deal right now is that SOS has had the second base up for quite a bit longer. He's got a big worker lead. He's got some decent map control with those DTs. The only thing he's going to be lacking a little bit is in tech. Alicia is winning a little bit in that regard. So SOS, now it's up to him to catch up and use that economic advantage he's got to get that army that he needs to beat Alicia.
Well, he's pushing across the map now. He's had so much map control this game, really forcing Alicia to react to him.
Yep.
And Stalker skirmishes going down there with Void Ray joining the fray. And again, that blink proving so useful.
SOS flashing ahead to take out that Void Ray.
He still has to deal with these DTs as well. Good force fields. They're gonna. Oh, there's the recall. He leaves a Stalker behind though.
He lost the Void Ray, though, and that is a huge amount of charge loss coming up for SOS. The upgrade is about to finish, and I think Alicia may not quite be prepared for this. The Immortal's not going to help him a lot.
Well, he's backed up into the mineral lines. He has that Photon Overcharge as well, but the Stalker is blinking to the other side. He's trying to get that Observer. Not quite able to finish it off, though. These Immortals just opening fire from the back.
The Immortals are not focusing down the Stalkers, too. They were just going ahead and auto-attacking on the Zealots as well. He's going to try to move into the main. SOS hanging out in Alicia's base right now. He sees that robotics facility, but is he a bit trapped here?
He is. It looks like he's caught between a rock and a hard place. Going to blink forward, going to focus down these Immortals, see what damage he can do.
Yeah.
He's still playing.
Oh, he's got a
around
DT
the
in there
base
killing
right now.
drones.
Yes, he does. He's had it. He killed the observer earlier. You can see he has 2 observers with his army.
Yep, very good
so
idea
he was
there.
able to focus him down with his stalkers after a blink, and
I
now
love this. Oh man,
just doing so much damage to the economy of Alicia.
Well,
and look at that supply lead right now as well.
Being so patient in terms of when to use those DTs, and this Nexus is in big trouble. It's going down, no question about it. sOs pulling an even bigger lead right now, and I don't know if Alicia can hold this, man, even with that one Colossus.
Well, it does look like sOs is having his way. He's pushing slowly up that ramp. That Colossus doing good damage from the rear, but will it be enough as
That's
these
charge
lots
Yeah.
just close
GG.
that gap? And there's the GG. sOs will take game 1 on Belshir Vestige.
Yeah, a little bit of a weirder PvP. I mean, Alicia did certainly have the nice higher tier units, higher tech units, but continuously making the Immortals was a little bit surprising. I think he expected sOs to go a bit heavier into the Blink Stalkers, and I mean, it's all about that misdirection. sOs says, hey, I'm going to present you with option B. I'm going Blink Stalkers, and then behind it, going for that Zealot charge, using that Twilight Council and overwhelming Alicia in a situation where, honestly, all those Immortals didn't really help him out at all. So smart play from sOs, and Alicia just not quite able to hold on to game number 1.
Yeah, I have to say, I really like that decision in that fight, just to chase after that Oracle. It looked like maybe he had Observer. He maybe overcommitted to chasing down that Observer, but then turned out once he got in the base, that one DT just able to do so much damage.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a big part of it too. I mean, just having the patience to wait with the DTs, to kind of wait until a situation where Alicia had probably kind of forgotten they were there in the heat of the moment, and then while all the fighting is going on, sending the DT in there to go after the probes. Man, sOs, I'm going to say it again, this guy is the best Protoss in the world right now. He is so smart in all of his matchups, and we haven't really seen a lot of PvP from this guy, but so far, he's 3-0.
That's right, very impressive play. And let's see, we are going to get into the second game on Akalon Wastes.
Yep, Alicia looking a little bit worried here. He can pull it back. It is a best of 5, so one game isn't the biggest deal. I mean, he can come back and still win it a little bit, tie it up with game number 2, and then essentially kind of make it a best of 3. But the countdown is going, guys. Game number 2 starting in just a moment.
Welcome to Game 2 here at the WCS Season 1 final of Alicia, right there. Your red Protoss player and representing Team Axiom. And he's up against our blue toss, sOs from Wungjin Stars.
I thought they were going to color coordinate the headphones there for a second. It didn't work. Uh-oh. sOs. Oh, he needs to chrono boost his computer, man. Get that back up to speed. So it looks like we may have to probably just regame if he drops at this point, since we just started, but we'll see. No need to resume from replay at 44 seconds in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
or recover game, I should say. That's the official title, doing that sort of thing.
Well, what an interesting first game. And as you're saying, too, you put out a very good point, is sOs is now 3-0 in WCS after 2-0ing Hero. So he's looking very strong right now. And
yeah.
Not only that, but I feel like he showed, I don't feel like he has showed very different tactics in all 3 games that we've seen of him so far in this PvP matchup. And
I mean, he's got some tendencies. He does indeed, like the DTs. He does like to, be a little bit deceptive and cheesy. So, I mean, the thing is that with sOs, I feel like Alicia going into this game is really just going to need to do 2 things. 3 things. One is obviously all in him, just do some sort of crazy cheese himself and try to just catch him with that. But the more, the 2 more likely scenarios, I would say, would probably be to do something like play very safe, play very defensive, and then just scout. Always be scouting against sOs, because he will always try to catch you with something you're not expecting. And if you're very, very diligent about your scouting, maybe you can find out in time. Maybe you can defend it. But I feel like with sOs, unless you strike first, you have to be so careful. He seems like a very, very difficult opponent to play against in all the matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we were doing our interview, we were just talking about how clever he can be, too. And he said, I always try and think one step ahead of my opponent. I realized that if I could fake them out with hallucinations, if I could actually come into a game and make it look like I was doing something, then solicit basically a specific reaction, a specific mix of units, a specific strategy
Yeah.
from my opponent, then I just counter that instead. And that's this guy in a nutshell, really. And so he's always.
Look, it's the guy who picked the balls out of the thing for the group selection.
Oh,
yeah.
that's right.
He makes another appearance.
He does. So we are going to have a regame.
Yeah, you're absolutely right with what you're saying, too. But, yeah, it was a client issue we're hearing, so they're going to have to restart either the computer or the client and then get back into it. So we're just going to go ahead and regame game number 2. Again on Akelon Waste, and we'll see if SOS can take a 2-0 lead against Alicia or if he'll be able to come back and tie up the series. It's going to be fun.
It is indeed. Well, if you guys are just tuning in, our first series, Solkey went up 3-1 over Roro. So that quarterfinal is done. So Solkey definitely through to the semifinals now. Yeah. And the winner of this game, or this series, I should say, has to go and face him. Now, so that means maybe Solkey, maybe Alicia. I think a lot of people may be thinking SOS has the edge here.
Yeah.
And that'll be another semifinal in WCS between SOS and Solkey.
They've got some history, yeah. And I mean, the last one, Solkey obviously did win that because he ended up in the finals of WCS Korea Season 1. And we talked to actually SOS about this a little bit. We're like, well, you know, if you end up playing Solkey again, you know, do you have any sort of tricks in mind? Have you figured anything out since that match to beat him? And SOS said, well, you know, it's really hard because of the way he plays. He's so deceptive. You really can't predict what he's going to do. And also, you know, just as a teammate, they know each other's styles so well. So SOS just kind of straight up saying, Solkey is just a really, really hard opponent for me. And then we also said, well, be honest with us. You know, Roro versus Solkey, this was back when the matchup was still going. Who do you really want to win? You know, because of course you want to, you know, support your team, but then again, you may want to play against Roro as well. And SOS said, yeah, you know, I want to support my teammate. I want to see Solkey get through because we're teammates, and that's a great thing. You know, I want him to win. But at the same time, I'd much rather play against Roro because I've got a lot more confidence against him. But no luck for SOS, man. If he does move on against Alicia, if he's able to beat him, he's going to be playing against his teammate once again. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, man. I mean, it's only game number 1. Alicia, though, he's going to have a lot of time now to sort of consider this and think about it. And I feel like game number 1 really did set the tone for Alicia and maybe will help to kind of put him in the right mindset to tie up the series.
Absolutely. Well, there he is, thinking hard about his next match. We are getting back into this game.
Yep, that's right.
So give us just a moment. Sorry about the delay.
Yeah,
I know you're quite eager as we are to see this great PvP.
Yeah. This sort of thing doesn't really happen a lot, honestly, anymore. We don't really have to wait a lot in SC2. Honestly, since Heart of the Swarm has come out, things have been a little bit smoother. So a bit of a rarity, but that's okay. We just get to savor the moment. The suspense just builds even more. That's right. And of course, guys, if you're bored waiting, which we can't blame you, on the other stream right now, Day9 and Diapollo and Chobra are having a chat with Solkey himself. So if you go over to the stream right now, they're hanging out, and they're going to be also watching these games, not really casting, but just sort of chatting about various things and chatting with you, the community, while the games are going on. So that's going to kind of be how it is all day, where stream number 1 is going to be the cast, stream number 2 is just going to be the caster lounge, just chilling out. Here we go again, guys. Game number 2. Let's do it.
All right, we're in it. So after that short break, a respite if you will, we will be seeing game 2 of Alicia versus SOS. SOS currently up 1-0, but Alicia, your red Protoss from Team Axiom, on Akelon Wastes at the 10 o'clock position. And SOS, the blue toss from Woongjin Stars, and he'll be starting this game at 4 o'clock.
If you keep calling him Blue Toss, it's going to sound like it's his nickname or something. It makes him sound sad. He wasn't a sad player when we talked to him. He's a pretty normal guy. Seemed pretty happy with the whole situation. So we'll see if he can extend his lead here in game number 2. So Akelon Waste, too, I mean, it's really just one of those maps, like we've been saying all weekend, where you can see anything. It's got so many places to hide stuff, so many places to be tricky and proxy a building or two, but it also has fairly defendable bases if you can make it through that early game. And so this could be a map where either we're going to see something very